it is incumbent upon retailers today to really look at customer lifetime value, loyalty, and retention as it pertains to last mile. And in fact, I would argue that the team here at Convey sees retailers doing a lot of things right, but those that are doing particularly well in the last mile are getting proactive, and they are sort of doing some of the things you mentioned earlier to get ahead of challenges in order to make last mile delivery a real competitive advantage that can help their companies grow because of that great customer retention, because of the fact that they're spending less money on attracting customers and more time retaining them and getting the great value out of that. So, how we think about this at Convey is a number of different ways, but I want to start with just a little bit of context to think about, how big of a challenge this is right now for retailers. And, first, you guys may not know that there are about 13.2 billion shipments a year in North America alone. That is massive. That is just a lot of shipments, and it's not going to reduce anytime soon. But what you might not know, and what was pretty alarming to me as we sort of sifted through the data that our clients pull through our platform, is that about 11.5% of those shipments have some form of exception. So we're talking billions of shipments a year where there's an exception. What's an exception? An exception could be a delay, it could be damage, it could even be, a delay that maybe your carrier, FedEx or UPS, doesn't think is a big deal, but that a consumer thinks is a big deal. If it's a missed promise date and I ordered shoes for my brother's wedding, it's going to be a real bummer if they're one day late because I didn't make the wedding, or if it's a gift for Father's Day. Missing those really critical milestones for a number of different types of deliveries has a huge impact on customer engagement and retention. And to Jeff's data from before, whether it's the 63% number or the 83% number that I cited, across the board, more than half, by a long shot, of your customers won't come back if they have a bad delivery experience. And more than 10% of them are seeing exceptions in those shipments. Interestingly, we actually think that's only going to increase. E-commerce is outgrowing shipping. More and more e-commerce shipments are happening. If you look at this sort of chart, the gray bar headed up towards the right is really all about shipment volume. I know I'm only buying more and more things online these days. I know Adam and Jeff are too, and you are probably as well. But how that's impacted our expectations as consumers and how that is changing the way that shipping has to get done is pretty dramatic. If you look at the bottom half of the chart, it's about delivery options. You look about sort of the top half of the chart, it's about time to delivery or days to delivery. And if we think about 20 years ago at the first entrance of the internet, we were all pretty excited that we could put money into the internet and it would ship us something. We were really simply taking the old catalog business and putting it online. So usually it was delivered by truck, and typically it could take around 10 days. And that was fine. That was actually super exciting for all of us. Then 10 years later, still delivering by truck, but we had more modes, more different types of trucks that we would see, and you saw times cutting in half. In the 2010 era, we expected to have things delivered in about 5 days, sometime within a week. Right now, we're close to 2020. The number of modes is increasing, whether it's a bike messenger, an Uber car, a flex driver for Amazon, any number of different mechanisms. We see around 8 to 10 different types of delivery options, and consumer expectations are getting closer to 2 days. And you heard Jeff mention some of the 2-day delivery stats earlier. But I always like to look ahead and think about, well, what's going to happen in 2030, 2035? Well, we only see that delivery types and modes are going to increase even more. We can make fun of drones as a concept, but I think the reality is we're going to see drones in some urban areas delivering things. It's likely to happen, but there are any number of other delivery robots that are all being piloted right now, and consumer expectations for certain areas are getting to be in under an hour, It's not every delivery. I don't need to have my toothpaste delivered every hour, but if I have a food delivery or baby diapers and I'm a mom with a young kid screaming, those are the kinds of things that we're starting to expect as consumers,
And that's really starting to break the model of the way that we've thought about shipping over time.
Kirsten, the other thing I absolutely agree with the comment that the number of options is going to increase exponentially as we continue down this journey. We're actually seeing some retailers start to have discussions internally about how do they handle some of these leading edge technologies like self-driving delivery vehicles and drones. Not to do it today, but a lot of them believe it'll be coming way sooner than any of us expect.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's great to hear that your clients are starting to scratch the surface, because if they don't think about it now, they'll be on the back foot in 2030. And I think that puts a poignant point on sort of the next thing I want to talk about, which is what that leaves supply chain teams feeling like today. A lot of the clients that we talk to are feeling kind of overwhelmed about all the options that are available. When you have, call it 5 to 8 different modes that you're working with, you're getting stale or incomplete shipment data from a ton of different sources. Most of those clients are now trying to pull that into a bunch of different fragmented tools and processes. Customer care is using Zendesk. The OMS and the WMS are running on different systems. There's a TMS doing something else. All of these different MSs, if you will, all these different management systems are, have their own source of truth, not to mention disparate carrier data that's coming in. And a lot of those clients initially find themselves stuck with an inability to think about how to prioritize the problems they want to solve as they scale. Right? More and more shipments means more and more data and complexity in the system, and they really need tools to help them proactively get ahead of doing that. But I want to talk about an example about what does it look like today when sort of brands are doing the status quo and they aren't yet getting proactive about this. And this first example here is really what we sort of like to think of as leaving delivery to chance, which is a very dangerous thing to do when you have customers on the line. Today a delivery might look like, I place an order and it ships. I get an email for a carrier tracking page, and that's happened to me recently. I have some wine that was coming from FedEx, and I have a very irritating circular engagement of trying to get FedEx to my house when I'm home because I need to sign for it. Pretty challenging experience, but and the retail brand is being cut out of this loop, even though that's who I gave my money. That's who I want to trust. So in this context, in a traditional world, not only, as Jeff mentioned before, is a retailer losing the brand connectivity and that opportunity to engage with their customer, but maybe, even worse, if something bad happens and there's a delay, there's no notification, because why would FedEx want to tell me that there's a delay? Well, guess what? Now I'm going to call the brand. That first Wizmo or Where Is My Order call, that's not free. Those typically cost between $2 and $7 for every brand every time you get one of those calls. And let's say that customer care agent doesn't have good information. That's a very unsatisfactory experience for me. So maybe later I call again. And God forbid, what if the package is damaged? Well, ultimately what that typically results in is actually a damaged package getting to the customer late, who's frustrated, and who's ultimately got declining Net Promoter Scores and an unlikelihood to do business with that business again. So leaving delivery to chance is sort of saying, hey, I've handed it over to carrier XYZ, let's set it and forget it, is really not what brands of today can afford to do. So what does it look like on the other hand, experiences, right? We can wax philosophical about how not to do it all day long, but I think it's more important to talk about what are the right things, what are leading brands doing today. And we would say they're doing 3 major things. The first is that they have visibility to all of the data about their deliveries, regardless of what shipper or carrier they're using, regardless of what platform it's in, but they need to be able to find and understand their shipment. The second is that they need to engage with their customers. They need to communicate with the customer and empower the customer to be part of the solution if something goes wrong with a shipment, but at very least have transparency and engagement in that process. And then most importantly, they have to act on the information that they have. In a lot of cases today, we see brands starting with visibility or simple tracking solutions, but simply telling me that my package is late isn't enough. I need you to do something about it. So acting is really the pillar here that is critical in terms of getting proactive and building a competitive advantage out of delivery. And that's actually why they exist. So I'll talk a little bit about delivery experience management, which is what we think brands should be doing. And that is truly this art. It's not just a science, but it truly is an art of proactively ensuring that customers get their orders how and when they expect. Right? They need to be on time, in full, the way that a customer expects. And that takes three major sets of capabilities, which we've spent a lot of time working with retail partners to build. The first are visibility solutions, right? Unifying real-time carrier data in a single place so that it's consistent, it's been normalized, and it's easy to use an API-based system to provide the visibility that brands need, both for an individual customer care agent, but all the way up to supply chain leadership who might be doing carrier negotiations. On the far right, you've got customer experience, right? Branded tracking pages, the ability to do appointment scheduling for large item deliveries like furniture or electronics. Those kinds of things that really put the customer at the heart of the engagement are absolutely critical, but they're not enough. In the center, what you see is this sort of ability to take action. And the way that we think about that is first around insights and analytics, right? If you don't know what's going wrong, you don't know what to take action on. That could mean kind of macro level delivery performance, or it could even be down to the nitty-gritty of, hey, where are shipments getting stalled along the way? Those insights then drive into exception recovery. And exception recovery is fundamentally workflow between the shipper and the carrier that enable 4 times faster issue resolution so that brands can actually fix things when they go wrong, because those 11.5% of the time that things go wrong, something's got to be done about it. And trying to do that manually through email, phone calls, spreadsheets is really ineffective. Getting proactive requires the tools to do this at scale. So I'd love to talk a little bit about a couple of brands that are doing this. The first is Uncommon Goods. And if you've never heard of Uncommon Goods, they're a really cool company. They're a gifting company, if you will. They provide a catalog, digital and physical, of very interesting and unique gift items that are for all sorts of things. I personally have shopped them for Father's Day because they have some unique and cool things. But as you can imagine, as a gifting company, for any holiday or major milestone, they see a lot of spikes and peaks in sort of need. And a couple of things that they wanted to do, they first wanted to provide consistent communication to their customers, right? Because they see delivery as a storefront. They don't have any physical stores, and their consumers only shop digitally or via catalog with them. But they also wanted to get proactive to make sure that gifts arrive on time, because their brand is truly at risk. If my Father's Day gift didn't arrive, why would I ever buy again from that retailer? So they ended up using Convey's Delivery Experience Management solution during peak to not only communicate delivery expectations to their customers, but even more importantly, they did something very cool. They used our algorithmic insights to identify when shipments were off track. And if someone's Father's Day gift wasn't going to arrive, they would cancel the order and reship an expedite order. What they saw overall was significantly increased on-time performance. 54% of their consumers left positive feedback about that shipping experience through the tracking page, and a lot of their customers engaged with them through email and SMS. So ultimately, they were really happy about this outcome, and it's something that they wouldn't have been able to do without technology by their side. And Jeff, you've had some experience with this type of capability as well, right?
Yeah, it's really cool that you guys do this. As a CTO for a retailer, I actually built this capability, and I will tell you, it's not as easy as it sounds. And then later on, as a consultant, they actually worked with a gift provider to kind of think through this model, and the business case was exactly what you're suggesting. It was, let's proactively try to find stalled shipments through the data, and then let's try and rescue that delivery, and if we can't, let's expedite the delivery to make the day we promised. And And the data's all there. It's just you have to sift through it, through technology, and it sounds like you guys have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, I love that we always think about promise date, and the consumer ultimately holds that brand accountable. So being able to get ahead of it and be proactive to meet the promise date is super valuable. Cool. Let's talk a very quick hit on a capability. Jeff talked earlier about communicating with your customers, frictionless customer experience, having branded tracking pages, automated alerts, even the ability to do self-service appointment scheduling. Alerts and things are table stakes. Self-service appointment scheduling is actually pretty new and challenging, and only a subset of carriers tend to offer this, but being able to do that digitally is huge. So definitely something for you to think about as you're evaluating what you build and buy. Thinking about how you make that customer experience frictionless is super valuable. The next brand I want to talk about is one that hopefully you're hearing of because they're growing really, really fast. Grove Collaborative is doing delivery experience management in what I would say is some of the most forward-looking way of all the clients that we're working with today. They are a venture-backed, high-growth consumer packaged goods company, and they basically sell eco-friendly or green home cleaning products. They've got brands like Meyer's soap that you know, and they also have some of their own label brands. And what's interesting about them is because they are a fast-growing brand and they really put brand at the center of their customer experience, they know that they can't afford to mess up with a customer. Part of their business is also subscription. So if you mess up once, you've lost that recurring revenue stream, which is really, really important. So their ethos and their sort of customer-centric culture was already there, but they needed tools to try and do at scale what they were doing very manually. So they actually turned to Convey and are doing what we call exception recovery on a proactive basis, identifying damaged goods and delayed items and parcels in transit, and again, getting ahead of them before a customer is impacted. And what was so interesting to us, there were a couple of unexpected outcomes. Like the NPS improvement of 9.4%, we kind of expected it, but it's a really nice big bump. The cost savings at the bottom, we also expected, right? When they were able to get ahead of damage claims, saved $63. When they were able to get ahead of incorrect addresses through early identification of return to sender notifications, they were able to save $23 for incorrect address. But the most surprising is that they were able to do this so efficiently that their small team of customer care agents were able to get faster at resolution and spend a bunch of their time doing what they call being a Grove guide, actually helping upsell and cross-sell the product. And they saw a double in average order value since they've been using the platform. So that was a pretty cool outcome that we weren't expecting, but that I think shows how a brand can really take a leadership position and use proactive delivery experience management to be able to create a true competitive advantage and fuel their growth. What that looks like in practice is literally the ability to take an exception, an issue, whether that's a delay, damage, return to sender, and start a case, right? Identify them, assign ownership, collaborate live with carriers. Carriers are actually logging into the platform. Some carriers are emailing into the platform and having truly a single source of truth about a damage or issue along the way. So that when I as a consumer call in, it's not me playing the telephone game. Instead, Grove is able to look it up, action it, and ensure that everything is resolved quickly. On average, what we're seeing is clients using exception recovery capabilities are seeing about a 4 times faster resolution time than they had with their sort of older manual methods, those phone call, spreadsheet, telephone game. And that's a pretty great outcome for everyone. Not only is the customer happier, but it's a lot of cost savings and efficiency on the brand side. And the last brand goes without saying. Everyone's hopefully heard of Neiman Marcus. They're a partner that we've worked with for a number of years and love working with them. If you don't know, they actually have a large item furniture side of their business. And that's the part of the business that we've really helped Neiman Marcus improve. We've been working with them since July of 2017, and together with them, we've been able to provide both in-transit visibility to their customers, but also, again, take action when exceptions happen or schedule appointments much more quickly. And in fact, a lot of times appointment scheduling is one of the biggest challenges for large item delivery because you and I as consumers, we don't answer the phone when an unknown number shows up. So eventually you're in this, again, telephone game with a completely unknown party that's, a last final mile white glove carrier in your local market, and just that alone is 5 to 7 days of back and forth before you schedule it, and then you have to reschedule it. So we've supported them in improving transit time, but also in setting nearly 25,000 appointments to help their customers have a much better experience. There's one more capability I want to talk about that doesn't speak to any particular case study, but it really speaks to all of the things that these brands are doing, and it's really around insights. All of the data that we're talking about that typically sits in disparate systems, right? Getting different carrier sets of data from all of your different carrier partners is hard to sort of visualize in a meaningful and helpful way. So Convey has actually pulled together a number of insights to help brands optimize their network so that it's not just handling an individual exception when Kirsten's couch is late, but it's also zooming out to the 50,000 foot level and looking at things like you can see a screenshot here of transportation hotspots. For example, this January there was both a Super Bowl and a snowstorm in Atlanta all at the same time. You can imagine what might have happened to deliveries during that time frame. In fact, we saw a massive spike in delay and weather delay exceptions. But those are the obvious ones. It turns out there's lots of non-obvious reasons that your shipments could be in distress. And Convey Insights are elevating those to the logistics team so that you can get ahead of them, partner with your carriers, make sure that you are understanding what's going on in the network and benchmarking that against billions of shipping events that we track, partnered with the 100 plus years of supply chain expertise that Convey has in-house. So the last thing I'll say, and whether it's using software from Convey or thinking about other ways of doing this, right, effective delivery experience management and getting proactive about making the last mile really a competitive advantage pays dividends in two critical ways. The first, and the reason that we want to do this as brands, is that there's huge upside, right? We can improve CSAT and NPS. We're driving customer engagement. We're increasing lifetime value. All of those things are what is required in today's competitive landscape to build a brand. But we don't just get to do that because it's the right thing to do. It also has to make financial sense. And the good news is that it saves you money to do delivery experience management. On average, our clients see 6x or more return on their investment because of the efficiency that they see in reducing withmail calls, reducing reships and cancellations, and even getting better performance from their delivery carriers. So lots of different ways to think about it, but I always sort of boil it down to the reason you want to do delivery experience management is because it's great for the customer and the brand. The way you get to pay for it is because it pays for itself 6 times over. So with that, I'll leave you a brief overview of Convey. We are an Austin, Texas-based technology company. We work with 120 plus brands, folks like Neiman Marcus, who we talked about, but also the Home Depot, Eddie Bauer, Bed Bath & Beyond, Rent the Runway, The Honest Company, a number of brands that hopefully you're shopping with and loving today. And we are in the business of perfecting delivery experiences.